Hey guys, welcome back to Armored Warfare with the Captain, and today I'm rolling out in the T-72A. This is a Tier 6 main battle tank, Soviet made and fully elited out. It has all the ERA bricks all over the front of the vehicle. And the next thing you can notice is that I'm doing 66 kph because I'm going slightly downhill. The tank's quite quick, especially when you compare it to something like a Chieftain or a Challenger. And another thing you can notice is that everyone on my team decided to go this way on the map. Now that would have been fine if we hadn't stopped, but everything in front of me kind of stopped, and this is where the problems start to arise unless it just turns into a brawl fight. We had the tank advantage up here. We should have just rolled through this whole top upper flank, but instead we stopped, and this was a huge mistake. So right now I'm talking with a couple of my platoon mates, and we're deciding, like, yeah, we should probably go because the other guys down there are gonna get wiped out, and it didn't really look like anyone else in the team was really going to be too on board with it. So I sat here doing the HE thing, shooting HE at Leopard 2 turrets because I'm never going to pin the Leopard 2 from the front. See, look at that. Yeah, 60 damage. Woo! And you can see in the bottom of the map, the unfortunate fellows decided to push really far down in there into the hangar area, then wiped out. So we now finally decided to move up, and unfortunately Frank went in a little bit too early. I think he maybe should have waited. No one else went in quite as hardcore as he did, and they decided to focus him out first. Unfortunately. So he's taking hits, and I'm in about 30 seconds too late, and he's getting hit and getting hit. And I'm lowest tier in this game, so I'm tier 6, and there's tier 8s that we're fighting. So I'm going to roll in behind this guy and see it doing a lot of damage. I'm going to turn, and I'm going to put one into the back of that guy. And you can see the real benefit is if we would have all gone in at the same time and been coordinated. And that's just generally what you're not going to get in a random kind of game, unfortunately. And you can see, like, we're losing fairly handily. The game started out with a minimized game, so we didn't have a full tank complement of vehicles in the game. But the T-72 is capable of doing anywhere from like 500 to I think even low 700s worth of damage, which is pretty respectable. And unfortunately our map position now is god awful. It doesn't get any worse than what we're currently at. The T-72 has terrible gun depression, and it can get penetrated. I found I can actually get penetrated fairly easily even through the mud guards for some reason. Whenever I'm getting shot at, specifically in PvE games, I find I'm getting penetrated and getting full damage hits against the vehicle through the mud guards, which I'm not completely sure why, and it's typically from straight on shots, which is odd. So we decided to go up around this other way. The next weakest spots on the T-72A are the lower plate, and the sides of the tanks can sometimes soak up hits, but those are typically going to be shots from heat rounds that get eaten up by their ERA armor. You can see the bricks on the side of the tank right there. So I'm going to try and get around the side of this Challenger, because sitting at the front of him and shooting him is just an exercise in futility. So you can see here I'm turning his turret, I'm turning his whole tank, and the other guy didn't really decide to do anything other than sit there and shoot at what I decided to go in on. You can see him moving up slightly here, but I put myself into a bad spot because I'm getting hit by guys that are across the way in the valley. So I start backing up, trying to get out of here, and then I get tracked, and it's not looking too good. Hey! My cat was clawing something. And then I die. So I think the lesson for this match here was everyone has to go in at the same time. When you push, you got to do a full committed push. If we would have done that, we would have had more tanks, we'd have had more guns in the game, and it would have gone a lot better for everybody. But instead, that didn't happen, and we lost. But I'm still testing how things work and how to really the PvP dynamic of this game is different than World of Tanks. So I was actually fairly happy doing the 2600 damage in this game against mostly tier 7 and 8 vehicles that I was fighting. So it just proves that, like, if you sit there and you're hull down, you're gonna do yourself a disservice if in a lower tier vehicle. But if you get in there and you start brawl fighting with other vehicles, specifically main battle tanks that are going to be extremely hard to pen from the front, especially when they're moving and their weak spots are quite small. So you've really got to try and get in there and mix things up, because honestly, people will think, oh, this guy's tier 6, he's not going to be able to do a lot of damage to me. But a lot of these vehicles in Armored Warfare, especially with the main battle tanks, the amount of damage they can do is it's a little bit misleading if you're used to World of Tanks, because there's a huge disparity between what sometimes a main battle tank or like a heavy tank can do at tier 6 compared to tier 8. But in this game, it's a little bit more. They've balanced each tank to feel a fair bit different. The T-72 is all about mobility and damage and kind of okay armor, but the tanks like the Challenger are all about armor, not very fast, and the gun's not very great, but it's accurate and it shoots quicker. So there's all these different trade-offs that come into how the vehicles are all balanced. But when you play as a tier 6 against tier 8s, you got to really, you got to pick your battles and know that you're not going in alone against people. But I find that just the way the tanks are balanced, it's a little bit easier to go in against vehicles that are a little bit above your head, and if you're a better player than them, then sometimes you can take them out. Unfortunately for our guy here, he didn't adapt well enough and quick enough to the situation, and he got blown up real quick. So I'm just going to keep backing up, because there's going to be a whole horde of tanks coming around the corner. Keep backing up, keep backing up. Is he going to come around? And then I got another tank coming around from the right. You can see that I'm able to hit most of his targets not fully aiming, because the RNG in this game isn't quite as bad. I'm outputting really good damage. I'm able to bounce shots off the upper plate of this tank. And the problem is when you run into vehicles that are autocannon vehicles and they burn off all your ERA with their autocannon shells, then you lose that ability to soak up heat shots, but that's going to happen no matter what. But I have noticed that even at shooting at this tank, the side of the turret is pretty damn strong. Excuse me, the side of the turret is pretty damn strong, even shooting at it with an equal tier gun. Like I've been shooting at T-72s with this tank, and the turret is definitely one of the stronger points of the vehicle. And if you can keep it hull down, it's pretty hard to pen. You just don't want to angle hardly at all, because that's one of the things about main battle tanks in this game. You got to really watch how you're angling and not give them too much to shoot at, especially in the sides of the vehicle, because they're extremely weak. I found that T-72A shooting at another T-72A can pretty much shoot through the side of another T-72A pretty easily, especially if it's only shooting AP rounds. If you're shooting heat rounds, you're definitely doing it wrong because of all the ERA that's plastered on the sides. But the main thing you want to do is, I found in this tank that you can load up a lot of heat on lower tiered vehicles like tier 3s and stuff, because you're typically shooting at a lot that doesn't have a lot of armor and it's got more weak spots and they're bigger. But when you're at tier 6, you sometimes have to fight tier 7s or 8s or 9s depending on what's going on, it becomes a lot less useful to have a lot of heat rounds, especially against a tank. Like if you run into like a Challenger or things that are just, even VFMs sometimes manage to bounce shots, and I'm not entirely sure how they manage to do it, but they do. Just because of the way they're balanced as the light tank with pretty formidable armor. So I usually roll out with a bigger assortment of AP rounds now. I usually run only about 5 or 6 heat rounds, and the rest would all be AP with a couple HE just for emergency resetting, or if I need to do damage to something that has not very many hit points left, just by shooting hatches and stuff for like 50 or 100 damage. But you can see the mobility of the tank's pretty good, and the accuracy of the gun is not a bad thing about it either. It's just the aim time's a little bit longer because it does more damage, but it's able to hit things fairly well, except for when I I need to show that it does, but then I miss. That shot went above the bay, but not the back of the turret, which was nice. And now I'm gonna end up shooting at an Abrams, and you can see there, I managed to hit the turret ring. That happens to be the best place that I found frontally to actually ever pen the Abrams. It doesn't actually show up green. I just kept shooting at them in different areas to try and figure out what was a good place to shoot. And see that shot there? That was a total RNG shot that just decided to go completely awry and fly in the middle of nowhere. But I'm not entirely sure why the Abrams decided to drive over with his turret backwards. That's a bit of bad bad AI programming as far as I'm concerned there. I'm not entirely sure why he decided to terminate himself like that, but it was good, and I got some help from my team. And now I'm going to take a shot from this Leopard. Unfortunately, I don't even know where he managed to pen me. Probably through my side because I came over a little bit sideways. And I got the gun depression to poke around here and take him out. And again, with the way that the AI is programmed right now, they don't typically shoot at your turret. They'll want to get a hull shot because they kind of auto snap to your weak spots. And those are typically in the hull and not really in your turret. So if you can get around showing your hull, then you'll find that usually they'll decide to shoot something else, at least in PvE mode. Players will, of course, shoot at whatever they can to try and do damage to you. Again, the tank is good tank, but in PvE, if you get in situations like I'm in now where you're having to shoot like constantly over and over again, you're finding you're gonna run out of ammo and you're gonna be depleted pretty quick. Like I actually switched to HE just to put shots into the back of this tank that I knew I could do a decent amount of damage to with this type of round, and then I would switch back to AP rounds where I might bounce maybe on the back of these tanks, but it definitely pays to have an extra maintenance kit because sometimes you just run out of ammo, and if you don't have any ammo left, you're going to be useless. And it sucks to burn like anywhere from like 4,000 to 12,000 credits, at least at tier 6 on this sort of stuff. But I mean, if it means you're going to lose, then you kind of just going to bite the bullet. One of the other nice things about the T-72A is that it can shoot missiles, and they do typically around 500 to 700 damage as well. And the penetration for them is really good. So shooting at the lower plate of that, I think it was MBT 70, it was able to go through no problem. The lower plate on the MBT 70 is fairly weak, and it's the best place to shoot at if you can. And I had to burn my kit there. I didn't want to sit sideways in front of that other guy for too long because he would have sat there doing quite a lot of damage to me. And the artillery, of course, is honed in on my position and wants to do damage to me. And that was a pretty huge waste of an AP round, but the game at this point was almost pretty much done. So managed to win this game. I'm not going to actually be able to get over to the other side and get the last cargo box or truck that we had to explode, but it ended up being a pretty good game as far as damage and kills goes for a PvE game. We lost 2 of our teammates, but the team, mostly the rest of the team was on the other side fighting. I was kind of lone wolfing it on the other side of the map and putting shots in on their side when I could. But the tank traverses fairly well. The turret's not super fast, and you'll find that when you turn the turret and you're trying to shoot at things on the move, the reticle actually blooms so much that it won't narrow in as the turret's moving, like let alone with the hull moving. So it's a bit of it's an annoying thing that goes on with the T-72, and it doesn't happen quite as much with other vehicles. Like I find I can turn my turret with my chieftain and it'll still narrow, but there must be some sort of mechanic in there that's telling it to not do that with the T-72. But it's able to do good damage. It can shoot fairly quickly, like 7.5 seconds, I think I've got it down to. And I got retrofits on it to try and speed up the reload and the targeting times to try and negate those negative aspects of the tank. You can see there, did 15,000 damage, managed to get a decent amount of kills out of that game, and didn't rack in a whole ton of money, but almost 6,000 XP. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys again in the next video.